Hey everybody, it's Coach Scott and welcome to my channel where today we're going to be going over what, in my opinion, is the best play in football, and that's wide zone. I love this play because it helps mitigate negative plays. It's flexible depending on what the defense does, and really sets up the entire wide zone offense, which if you watch my streams on Twitch, it's all I run on offense. And we're just going to be talking about wide zone today. We're not going to be talking about stretch or otherwise known as outside zone. Uh, it has a different overall intention because they're really trying to get to the outside, rip, run, and overtake, and it's a wider path by the back. And how that sets up, some of the blocking is similar, but in essence, it's sort of a different play, right? So we're just going to be going over the fundamentals of wide zone here today, specifically taking you through, how the blocking scheme works together, and taking you through the covered and uncovered rules of the offensive line and how the offensive line works together to get to second level, which is going to spring bigger gains for you as a running back. Then we're going to talk through the back's path, why it's important to really setting up this play, and then take you through the back's reads as in Madden 24. Again, as the user, you are the running back. So as long as you can understand how your double teams are going to work together, you understand your reads, and you get really good at reading those and executing off of that, this is going to be a very efficient play for you in Madden 24. But before we get started, please feel free to hit the like button, as well as if you enjoy this content and want to learn more, go ahead and subscribe as well. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So, covered uncovered rules. These rules dictate how the offensive line works together to specific defenders on the line of scrimmage. So, first, who's covered? So, we're going to look here at the right side of the offensive line because that is going to be play side for us here. So as we look at the offensive line, the center number 50, the right tackle number 73, and the tight end on the line of scrimmage number 88, they are all covered. They either have a head up technique over them or that defender is shaded to their play side shoulder. So they have to be able to block that guy because they're taking those play side steps here with zone blocking schemes. Everybody steps play side with that first step. And so that is the first defender they're going to have to block, and so that's who they need to focus on. Now, the uncovered blockers on the front side, we're just going to really focus on number 76, the right guard. So he doesn't have a defender in his play side gap or head up on him. He has one to his backside shoulder, but he's not working backwards with zone because, again, we're stepping all in the same direction. So he is going to work towards the same aiming point as 73 is. It doesn't show this well in Madden, but in real life, what both 73 and 76 are going to do is they're going to work to get either, there's a couple different coaching points that people go to, but like they'll try to get the screws of their helmet to the play side nipple, or they're going to try to sniff the play side armpit of that of 95 there. They're both going to go to that same aiming point because we want to take care of the first level first and create that horizontal movement and secure that first level, and we'll work up to second level based off of what the first level does. So here in this example, as we're focusing on 76 and 73, 73 can't get beat away from his help, right? So he's not going to worry about that because of 95 spikes inside to the B gap. And if we're just quickly rehashing what gaps are, if we go from the center to his right is the A gap, right or left are the A gaps. Between the guards and the tackles or the B gaps. And then as we look at the right side of the offense here, the gap between 73 and 88 is a C gap. And then we have a D gap between the tight end and then the wing tight end over there. All right, so if going back to our example here, so if 95 spikes inside and crosses the face of 73 and is really trying to fight to get into that B gap, then 73 is going to let him go. He'll probably put his backside hand on the play side shoulder of 95 to ensure that 76 can secure that block, and then he's climbing to second level, right? So that's what happens when he spikes inside. But when he goes outside, like he does here, 73 cannot get to his aiming point. He wants to get his helmet to the play side of the defensive lineman's helmet, and that's going to help determine some of your back reads. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But he is going away from the uncovered guy. So if that guy is going away, 76 is getting vertical on sort of a train track here, right? He's going to stay on that track, and he's going to block that second level defender on the path that he finds him. All right. And if that color were to hang, right, if 95 just kind of sits here and he doesn't go outside or inside, and 76 can't take over that block by the third step, he is going to shove 95 very hard play side and displace that front side, and he's going to climb on his track to the second level and block that backer on the path that he finds him. Now, I talked a little bit about the difference between sort of fundamentally of the idea of wide zone versus outside zone or stretch. And that is with outside zone, again, we're trying to rip, run, and overtake and get to the outside. Yes, you can cut up very similar to the way you do here in wide zone, but with wide zone, we're trying to displace the front side while cutting off the back. So we're going to more often hit this play more vertical and downhill than what somebody typically would think of when they're thinking about this play, especially with the moniker of wide. So we've talked through, what we're doing on the front side here and how covered uncovered rules will dictate what the covered man and the uncovered man are going to do. Talked a little bit about the three things that the uncovered man is going to do based off of what the defensive lineman does, and then based off of how that combo works, he's going to get to second level. So that's the front side, right? And as you see here in this example, we're displacing that front side. But what are we doing here on the back side? So we need to cut off this back side. And so this center's block is going to be really important to doing that. And you see here where he has gotten his hat play side. That is what we want to see if we're going to stay outside. All right. And so he is effectively cutting off that backside. As soon as he gets that leverage, he's going to try to work his hips upfield and turn his hips to seal him off. So we see right here, he flips his hips and he seals him off. And I'll move to the back here so it's easier to see. We don't keep going away from you with the screen. So as soon as he secures that, he works his hips upfield, secures that, and that's what's able to get us vertical up the field. So that is how the offensive line works together with their combo blocks. And how we're displacing on the front side, but ultimately we're cutting off the back, and that's going to create some of these bigger, more explosive runs for the offense. So let's move on to the running back, right? As you look at the back's path that we were talking about earlier, so with wide zone, the running back's path, so let him set his path here, is going to be the outside leg of the tight end, which is number 88 right there at the top of the screen. So he takes that step and he sets his path. We do not want to deviate off of this path. I know you see people online where they're with stretch or whatever, they're just going to go straight to the sideline with a super fast running back and then try to get up the sideline. Well, if you came to the channel to see some of those types of glitchy things, you came to the wrong place, because I'm only going to show you how you can replicate real life schemes in football in Madden. So again, he's going to set his path to the tight end there, and we are not going to deviate off of this. So he is going to go through his reads to determine if he is going to stay on his path or where he is going to cut vertically up the field off of these blocks. So we're not cutting back in wide zone. We're not cutting all the way back there like you would with inside zone. We're cutting straight up the field, and you're going to see in this example is how we cut straight up that hash. So with that said, going back to what we were talking about with the aiming points of the offensive line, and they're trying to get their hat or their helmet play side. This is going to be one of the biggest determining factors in helping you as the running back identify if you need to move on to your next read. So when we look at what our reads are, play side, we're looking at the outside most down lineman first. That is our first read. So in this example, that's going to be number 95, who's on the outside shoulder of the right tackle. The reason why we're not reading the outside linebacker is he's already going to be outside of my path. I'm never going to get outside of him. So why should I ever read him? The only instance where you would read an outside linebacker is if you are going against a 3-4 over, and the outside most defensive lineman with his hand in the dirt is a 3 technique. If that's the case, that would be the only time that I would say you would read that outside linebacker, because he's probably going to be more like in a 6 technique head up on that tight end. All right. But we have an under front here, so we're going to be reading 95 as our first read to the next inside down lineman from him, which is going to be 93, the nose tackle in the play side A gap. So from the snap, I'm going to take my first step here, second step, and my third step. By your third step, you should have made your decision about where you're going to run this football. So as we get to 1, 2, 3, 73 does not have play side hat placement. So if his helmet's inside, I'm going to stay inside of him. So my eyes are going to snap to my second read, which is 93. So 50 is able to reach him and gets his hat outside. If his hat's outside, I stay outside of him. So that's where I'm cutting up on this path here just slightly. And based off of where that free hitter is, I make a move past second level, and now I've got a 15-yard run. So what happens if 95 there, our first read, goes inside? Well, if he's got outside hat placement, if 73 has outside hat placement, I'm going to stay outside of him until somebody crosses my path and forces me to cut upfield. Or if for some reason he has outside hat placement, but they widen so much that they cross my path, then that's when I'm going to cut up that field. But otherwise, hat's outside, stay outside. And let's say, okay, so if my first read gets the outside hat placement, and so that tells me I'm going to stay inside of number 1, so my eye snapped to number 2. And I know we're not going to go and show this here, but let's say that 1 technique maintained his leverage in the A gap and doesn't get reached. And so that center also has inside hat placement. Let's just, for hypothetical, I know it's not what you see on the screen here. But if that happens, I am cutting inside of my center and cutting straight up that hash. You can kind of see where that would work right there. If that 1 technique was on the other side of him, 50 is just going to base block him and drive him outside. I'm going to cut right off his ass and vertically up the field. Now, one of the probably the most famous offensive line coaches that has really taught this play was Alex Gibbs. He was the offensive line coach for Mike Shanahan in the late 90s when they really were the first team in the NFL to really major in running this play. And one of the coaching points that he had for running backs is never outrun your center. Because if you have number 1 and number 2 maintain their leverage and keep outside hat placement, you need to be able to cut inside of number 2. And if I were to do that here, you can see that big lane there. I get it, 93's in that gap, but if he was on the other side of 50, that's a huge, huge lane to run through. And I know this guy's screaming off the edge, flat down the line of scrimmage, but he's typically not going to get there. So we've talked through how we identify our reads, who our read keys are, number 1 and number 2. How we determine how we cut off of them based off of hat placement of the offensive line. If his hat's inside, I stay inside. If his hat's outside, I stay outside. But when we execute on our reads, so we got to right about here, the third step, where we're making our decision. But if we're going to cut, we're going to cut on our 5th step. This aligns with the timing of the offensive line and getting to second level, because the uncovered guy does not take over the covered offensive lineman's guy. After his 3rd step, he's working to second level. And this timing of the back making his cut on his 5th step times up with that very same timing of the offensive line. So it's like a big choreographed dance, if you will. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I make it a little bit of a vertical move, and that is my 5th step. So I know that's just a couple examples here of wide zone, pretty much looking at the same picture the entire time, but I hope you found this helpful and insightful. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comment section here. And again, if you like this type of content and want to see more, subscribe and we'll have more coming your way. But with that, check you guys later, and we'll see ya.